So hello.
Hello.
Hi, yeah, not rhetorical. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, Zoomers. Welcome back. I'm excited to see folks. That must mean that the first class wasn't too terrible. You're here for more? Or someone's like, you need to stay. Whichever it is, we'll make it work. I went ahead and opened the online homework system. So now you get to test that out. So the link to it is right here. When you click there, there is a box that wants your last name. This is what it should be as it is in Maui. So I started with that as my roster. That means that if you have two last names in Maui, that's what you type. If you have a hyphenated last name, that's what you type. That being said, if you want a simpler name or a different name relative to what is in there, just email me and let me know and I'll be happy to change it. But you take your last name and your 8-digit Iowa ID number, and then, let me do one of these here. I have fake ones for myself. I use for testing purposes. I have a whole video about how to go through this that is posted right here, because I would like for you to try to complete this homework by Tuesday if you can. There's no late points on this. I just want to make sure that folks are able to use the system. The video itself took me all of 7 minutes to make, explaining the entire thing. So that is the upper end on how long this will take. But what it is once you log in, you will see all of your assignments. You will see all of your point totals. So this is where you go to see your current standing. Homework 0 is the only one that is available right now. It tells you how many points they're worth. So this is worth 2 points extra credit or a free assignment, however you want to think about it, free late assignment, excuse me. It is due theoretically on Tuesday. And I have questions like, how many homework assignments are planned this semester? 6. So watch what happens when I put in the wrong number. I'm going to put in 9. Hit enter. Oh, that's not right. I hit 6, I hit enter, and it's green. So you will have numeric questions like this that are graded instantaneously. Once they turn green, they are locked and you know that they are right. They are right enough, I should say, because once we get into actual homework, I will tell you the level of precision by which you have to answer, so the nearest 0.01. Each of these numbers then, or most of them, will be interpreted down here in paragraph completion questions. Those of you who are old like me might call these Mad Libs. You're familiar with those? A few folks are. Mad Libs is where you have, you're asked for like a noun or an adjective, but you don't know the context. And so you give a word and then you read a paragraph of, word salad, and it's quite funny. My son likes these things, but that's what I think of these as, except they're not quite so maddening, hopefully. So this is about my office hours. So for instance, my regular office hours will be held at the former Come and Go across the street, in the Chipotle, just north of here, in my campus office, or in my basement. What is the correct answer? Basement. Yes, on Zoom. So I don't come to my office very much. I prefer having office hours on Zoom because then you can share your screens and I can immediately help troubleshoot your code. My office hours are held when? 2 to 4 a.m., 3 to 4:30, or 8 to 10 on Friday evenings. Yes. So as you can see, this is not meant to be a challenge. So just want you to walk through the process here. Most important is when you are finished, you can say check and save answers. And this button, once you hit it, you can log out and come back later and finish it. This is not a one and done thing. All your answers and all your progress are saved. When you decide that you want to submit your final answers, there's a button for that. There is a 2-step process. You can either put in your ID to submit for real or hit the button that says go back and change something. So this is the only part that's tricky. Remember to re-enter your ID to confirm your submission. Otherwise, it will just sit there waiting for you. If you have any trouble logging in or if you have any questions on how to do this, please let me know. But hopefully this will make the process of doing homework and getting feedback much more less onerous than it otherwise could be. So please try to work on this hopefully by Tuesday, because your first real assignment is going to be due September 16th, so in 2 weeks. Monday is a holiday. It's called Labor Day, so I won't be having office hours, and that's why it's due Tuesday instead of Monday. And more Zoomers coming in. I fixed the audio, by the way, so Zoomers, you can talk again. All right, and I put up, let's see, we have lecture 1 and example 1 to start today. I'm almost done with lecture 2 and example 2, and so I will let you know when those are ready as well. Yeah. All right, any questions on any of that? Yes, sir.
The last question, that's subjective, isn't it?
What's what?
On your first homework.
It's subjective? Or,
It's either the class is going to be easy,
oh.
hard, or challenging but manageable.
Yeah, so that's the last multiple choice question. This class is going to be super easy, a nightmare, or challenging, but in a good way. There's only one correct answer, dude. But I intend for it to be challenging, but in a good way. But it is subjective. So, yeah, and if you watch the video, I literally answer all of these in front of you. So it's not meant to be a hardship. Although one of the questions prompted me to remember that I forgot to tell you, you all get a fall break. Did you know that? In this class you do? So there is a week in October, the week of the 7th through the 10th, where I'm going to be out of town traveling, and we're not having class. And because I don't want any craziness, there's not going to be anything due the day before I leave. And the thing that is due on the Monday I come back is just a formative assessment where you answer the questions and you get your 2 points. So, yes. And so we have an actual fall break because of this. And we have the fall break that the university calls it, which is Thanksgiving. And also nothing due of consequence except for a quiz after we come back from that as well. So I am going to Ithaca, New York for a conference at Cornell University. And it is very challenging to get there from the middle of nowhere, Iowa. So it's going to take multiple planes, and also we have to take my son to my parents' house in Omaha so he can go live there while we're away, and it's a whole thing. So going to be gone the week.
Presenting or just attending?
I am presenting, and I'm also holding our election because I am the society's past president.
Awesome.
So we hosted it in Iowa last year. Erica, you were there? It was raucous, right? No, we had karaoke. We had a band. It was awesome. Nerds can party, let me tell you. Quantitative methods people, we don't have the rep for being cool, but when we all get together, we let loose. All right, so what's this class about? What are we doing here this semester? What do you remember from last time? Dang! General linear models. Yeah. We're looking at associations between variables in a framework in which one is designated as the outcome we're trying to predict, and the other pieces of information we're seeing how they fit together to predict it. And it encompasses a lot of things that you may have already seen, such as correlations, t-tests, ANOVA, simple linear regression, which, by the way, I hate that term. No need to be offensive when you're describing something. Oh, it's simple. No, it's not. Not until you get the hang of it. Multiple linear regression, all that stuff. Let's see. We were transitioning. So yeah, this is what we're covering this semester. But I want to be very honest in what kinds of data you're going to be able to use these models on and what kinds you're not. I don't want to oversell. So that is the remainder of lecture 0, and then we can pick up on lecture 1, which is a review session. So yes, thank you, Zoomers. I'm watching the chat. So we've got that. So what kinds of data can use GLMs? That's what we're going to talk about here for a minute. Slide 19 in lecture 0. 0 because it's the introduction, So reviewing some vocabulary that you may have heard in your intro stats classes, populations and samples. So what do we want to know about in general? Another way to phrase that is, to what population do we want to make inferences? Do we want to try and make descriptions about that would allow us to say how things would work in another sample of the same kind? Who are we trying to project our results to? That's the question. Well, to answer that, then we have to figure out, well, who do we want to collect data from? We want to pick people or observation types that are as similar to what we eventually want to talk about. So if you want to talk about how to improve outcomes for teachers, you'd want to sample teachers. You want to improve outcomes for kids, you sample kids, etc. So what do we collect? They're called variables, pieces of information that vary across the units that we have sampled. So we have this lovely graphic here. And by the way, I don't remake pictures when I don't have to. I do not reinvent wheels. So every picture that I've stolen from somewhere in the internet, I try to give attribution down here. So just being real with you. I steal from Wikipedia quite a bit as well. So we have our sample taken from our population where I'm going to say people a lot because I'm a psychologist and that's where I'm based from. But I know some of you are studying probably organizations. Anybody say businesses, schools, couple folks, companies, animals? Any animal lab folks? Rats, fruit flies? No, plants? So people's work good for most things? Okay, so your companies are now people. Cool. All right. So let's say that we're in the College of Education, so we'll have one of those examples, that we're trying to examine graduate student life, and we decide to do a research study about that. We develop a survey. We collect self-report data on academic program membership, stress levels, and well-being. Well, then we got to answer questions. What kind of sample would best suit our needs to get information about how these things relate to each other? Well, for instance, what if we decide to narrow our focus to just people, say, from one academic program? Let's say higher education and student affairs. Where are my people at? There's me. What other programs do we have in the house? I haven't done the go around the room thing yet.
Educational measurement.
Yeah, educational measurement and stat.
LCLE,
LCLE, what's that one?
literacy, cultural, language education.
We got counselor ed, social work, counseling, psychology. And back? Management. Counseling, psychology as well. Dentistry. Okay, so your people are teeth then, maybe. Maybe. How about you? Okay, geography and information science. What kind of sampling units would you have? Need people. Okay, excellent. So we got a lot of programs here. There's a lot of differences across programs. So right away we'd have to make a decision. Well, do we want to narrow the focus and talk about one program? Because if we did that, then we can't look at how different kinds of programs relate to these other things. Saying that differently, if we selected people from only one program, one more engineering, health, and human physiology, excellent, then program would be a constant, not a variable. So constants are things that are the same across everyone in your sample. Variables are things that change. In the equations that I will show you, some of the terms will be constants that are the same, one number, and some of them will be variables that depend on who you are in your data set. To examine differences between programs, we'd need multiple programs at a minimum. But beyond that, is the program in, let's say, engineering the same here as it is at other places? It's an empirical question, as I would like to say, at the very least. So maybe we would want to expand the population we're trying to talk about to include multiple colleges or universities, multiple places, multiple programs. We could do that. How about one-shot measurement? Is the best way to get a summary of someone's life in terms of their stress and well-being to ask them one question on one day? Probably not. In a lot of settings, there is an interest in what is known as either ecological momentary assessment or experience sampling, where you ask these questions repeatedly, like every day, how stressed are you, how good do you feel, to try and get additional information that describes not just the person as a whole, but also specific occasions or transition points. Should we also try to get corresponding data? So self-report gets a bad rap because people lie, or they want to look good. So maybe we ask someone else who knows that person to talk about their opinion of that person's stress level or well-being to get triangulation or converging evidence. So there's a lot of things that go into designing a sample. I'm not going to talk about most of it in this class. Design of experiments is running right now. That is a class in which we'll talk about that, and there's a lot of program-specific classes that talk about research methods and sampling designs because they vary quite a bit based on what your content area is. I'm just trying to sort of plant the seed as to how complex these things can get and how that does or doesn't translate into the models that we'll look at this semester. So these questions address more generically what are known as independent versus dependent samples. Independent means everybody is separate. There's no reason why one person should be more related to someone else. Dependent means there are reasons why some observations are going to be more related. So all of these latter cases fall under the case of dependent data. So, example of an independent sample, one occasion of measurement from students in one program. Program's a constant, then it can't be part of the research questions. Other examples of dependent sampling that your analyses would need to account for. Sampling lots of programs. So if you collect observations from students from multiple programs, then that is what is known as clustered or nested data. The students are clustered in programs. So in that type of sample, there are at least two things to worry about. Why are some students different than others? But then why are some programs on the whole, their students look different than those of other programs on the whole? That's two dimensions of sampling at the same time. That is dependent sampling, not independent. Sampling people more than once. So if you have repeated measurements, you ask them every day for a week or you ask them once a year. Doesn't matter how far apart they are. Repeated is repeated. That's what's known as longitudinal data. That's the class I teach right above this one. Right, Erica? She's in that class. So she gets to hang out with me all afternoon. Yeah. If you have someone else answer questions about you, that is known as dyadic data. Or if you answer questions about each other. So like if you have a romantic relationship and both people in the partnership answer questions about themselves and the others, that's what's known as an actor-partner design. That's called dyadic data. And you would think that the responses of people who are in the same relationship should be more correlated than responses of people who are from different relationships, right? One would hope. So all of these types of situations create what is known as dependent sampling designs, and that is not this class. This class is independent. So I want to be very upfront about this, about what we can reasonably expect to get out of one semester. So this class is covering general linear models, which are designed for independent samples, one dimension of sampling at the same time. Students, that's it. Or businesses, that's it. One occasion, that's it. One source of information, that's it. We are going to be fitting what is known as univariate models. That means one variable at a time is being predicted, as opposed to multivariate, which means more than one variable is being predicted. Further, the outcomes that we're going to be focusing on are numeric, quantitative things, not kinds, but numbers. If you're like, bummer, man, that's not what I do. I have longitudinal data, or I have clustered data, or I have dyadic data, or any of these other kinds, I've got good news. Everything you're going to learn this semester is the jumping off point for more stuff, because these are core concepts that get added to, not subtracted from, when you're adding modeling parts that are designed for dependent samples. So I just want to plant that flag right now. You're not going to be able to analyze repeated measures data using the models we talk about in this class, or clustered data, or longitudinal data. But the pieces show up in those models. So if you know that you're going to be headed in those directions, I want to point out other kinds of outcomes for independent data. That's what generalized linear models is for. This is a newer class. It might not be in your program requirements yet. 6270, I offer it every spring. I built it as the follow-up to this class, like deliberately. And so it picks up where this class leaves off to predict other kinds of outcomes that aren't numbers. Binary, ordinal, nominal, counts, we'll talk about a little bit of that today, as well as multivariate for predicting more than one thing at the same time, as well as for testing mediation. The idea that this variable caused that variable, which in turn caused that variable. That kind of thing is called a path analysis. We do that at the end of that class. The other classes for dependent data, longitudinal is what I'm doing right now. Clustered will come back in the fall. These are for repeated measures or clustered data respectively, and they are essentially multi-layered regression models. So think of it as like general linear model lasagna, where you have like one layer for occasions and one layer for people and one layer for groups and as many layers as you need. That's what those models are for. They're called multi-level models. But this class is the building block of all of it. Okay, so that's my summary slide. We're learning general linear models. We're not doing hand calculations. We're focusing on procedures, logic, and language by which to express research questions and get the answers out of modern software, which is going to be Stata or R for the most part. You can also use SAS to complete your homework because that's how I built it. The online homework system that I showed you earlier is built by one ginormous SaaS program that runs the whole thing and builds the web pages. So, yay SaaS. And I will provide you with examples of everything that you need to do in homework and that you can take with you in terms of providing templates for your future work. Okay, deal? Any questions about what is going to be covered or what kind of research settings it would be applicable to? Cheers. Almost out of my can, which means that I'm running high on the caffeine levels. No questions. All right. At any point when you're picking out your classes for next semester or in your life, if you want to talk about what classes would be most useful, I can certainly talk to you. I also built a PowerPoint like flowchart of all the classes we offer and what order they should go in. I had to do that for myself when I got here to figure out the system, and I thought, well, if I'm building this for myself, why don't I give it to people? So I'm happy to share that if you'd be interested as well. All right, then we finished lecture 0. Yay, I know. By the way, these are not organized to be like fit into one class or 1 week. That's just way too optimistic. I've never been able to do that. So I just sort of like, we're going to start the next one. You know, that's how it is. But whenever I do that, if I remember to at least, I stop.